Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janabalabha Girivardhari Gopi Janabalabha Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Panachari Yamuna Tira Panachari Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Go Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. Welcome to New Mayapur. And today we will a little bit reading on discussing from a few books, because this week in ISKCON it is known as the World Shravanam Week. World Shravanam Week means the week for hearing. Hearing, Shravanam means hearing. Hearing what? The news. I think we're all fed up with the news the last 6 months or more, or 6 years or more, or 6 lifetimes or more. But there's another news which we're going to read. News of the spiritual world. It's a little different to the news of this world. So I just mentioned to begin with the practical meaning of World Shravanam Week. The practical meaning is to try to occupy our time more with hearing transcendental spiritual subject matters given by those who are known as Nivritta Trishna, Upagiyamanad Bhavoshiti Chotamanobhiramat, those who are without any material, material interest, no material attachment, no mundane affection. Their business is purely spiritual. There's no effects of lust or greed or anger or envy in their hearts. So by hearing transcendental subject matters, Kutama Shloka Ganana Vadat, from such great personalities the effect is that our hearts become purified. It is very relishable. Satam prasangam mama virya sangvido bhavanti vitkarna rasayana kataha. That to hear this subject matter from the pure devotees is very pleasing to the heart and to the ear. And in 1965, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, brought this pure message to the world in general. The message was already there, but hidden to people's consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada has made this message accessible to everybody. He brought this message of Godhead all over the world. And even in India, where people do have, you could say in one sense, access, in general, people had a misunderstanding of the nature of the absolute truth. Maybe a partial understanding, but not complete. So we're going to now just mention one thing. This year is the year 2020, as we probably know. 50 years has passed since 1970. I'm a mathematician. But in 1970, after 5 years of being in the Western world, Srila Prabhupada had printed or had published in 1970 and printed several very significant volumes of transcendental literature. And I have here 4 of the originals which were printed in 1970. I don't have them all. One missing is the Nectar of Devotion, and one Srimad Bhagavatam, maybe, I'm not sure. But I have the Krishna book. This Krishna book, this one, there are many editions. This one's very special. This was published in 1970. 2 volumes. This is volume 2. They come with a nice cover and many pictures and nice big print. Books that last. And I have others here, like this one. This book was also printed in 1970. It's practically as good as new. And it's in better quality than most of the recent prints. It's such good quality printing. Prabhupada wanted that. I have 3 Bhagavatams that were printed in 1970. Actually printed that year, these books. You can look at them afterwards if you wish. And they all have a name of Mrinmayi. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Mrinmayi Devi Dasi. I've never heard of her. Some of the books were left in Paris. And I found them the other day. So these 4 books this one also was actually printed in 1970. And this was the first book I ever got of Krishna book. Not this particular one, but this volume. Volume 2 of the Krishna book. And it's fast. I bought it in a second-hand bookshop in London. And it's so beautiful. So beautiful. Nastya on the front cover. So anyway, that's one thing. But today, as I said earlier, another book which was published that year was the Nectar of Devotion. But I don't have the original one. This is a recent print. All these books were printed in 1 year. And the last book that Srila Prabhupada translated into English was this one. Very small book. It's one chapter actually, from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's chapter 13 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it deals with Lord Brahma stealing the calves and cows. It's a wonderful pastime, and I think what I'll do is I'll read from this little book, because I said already this is the week for hearing transcendental subjects, book Bhagavat, from the person Bhagavat. They're non-different, on the same transcendental platform. The person Bhagavat, just like some of you are from Reunion. Who is from Reunion? Handles up. Handles up for those reunions. You have to have a reunion here one day. How many of you are from India? Anyone from India? Many from India. How many of you are from France? Quite a few from France. Well, you don't grow mangoes very often in France. Maybe somewhere, but not naturally. But in India, Reunion, you have mangoes, yes? Plenty mango. Plenty. And in India, different places in India, so many mango is there. Which part of India are you from? Delhi? Delhi. Delhi. Also in the north you have mango, but especially on the east coast, Andhra Pradesh, right? Mango loca. They're falling off the trees. Millions and millions of mango. So mango, when the parrot comes to peck the mango, it is said mango becomes sweeter. Just like mother. Maybe you also. Who you have children too? Your two kiddies? You have children here? Just you, two children. So maybe when they're little babies, maybe mother, when there is some food for the little baby, she sometimes puts it in her mouth and chews a little bit, without eating anything, not digesting anything, just making it easier to digest for the baby. So similarly, the pure devotees, when they deliver this pure message, they make it very digestible. Just like Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada has written many purports so that we can enter into the actual meaning of the verse. Not just philosophy, but practical lifestyle, so we can see what is there. Now in India, maybe many parts of the world, it is quite common to have cataract in the eye. You know this word, cataract? In Hindi, or what is it? You know, in Hindi, it's motivating. Is that, you know that word? Hindi. So in the eye, you can't see properly, So you have some operation, and then you can see. Actually, the object is there. Just like if we look at the back of this room, can you see these two beautiful paintings? Look to the back of the room, you see two beautiful paintings there. Krishna Balaram and Govindaji. And here, Gaurnitai. And maybe 2 years ago, I think, Ramdas Abhiram Prabhu, famous ISKCON artist, was here. He and his wife painted these beautiful paintings and donated, well, another devotee paid for them, Mahaprabhu, and they're now sitting here in New Mayapur. But he left his body just a few months ago, I think, wasn't it? I think so. But his wonderful service here. Now, if I have a cataract in my eye, I cannot see. The painting is there, but I cannot see it, or it's very blur. If your vision is very bad, you can't see properly. It's very blurred. Even now, if I take my glasses off, I can't see very well. I can see something, but not at all clear. So in the material world, those who are conditioned by because we're attached in the material world, our vision becomes colored, coated by various degrees of materialism. And even when we see scripture, we don't understand it properly. We interpret. We interpret it according to our particular, the way we see it. Not necessarily the way it is, but the way we see it. So the pure devotees, they give us the vision so we can see it for what it actually is. And they give us the direction so we can mold our lives in a way that our vision becomes purified, clear. Just like now, in many places, they've been locked down. You've had lockdown in Reunion also? Lockdown? 3 months lockdown. Gosh. And here in France also, I think. Something like that. In most countries, some now still. And now you see in many of the rivers and the oceans, at least at that time, the water was very clear. You know that? The water became very clean. You could see the bottom. You could see right down to the sand in the bottom. Whereas normally you can see nothing. It's all dirty. Like that. And the heart is clean. We can see things cleanly, purely, and not pervertedly. So hearing from the right source and following that direction cleanses our vision, cleanses our consciousness through which we perceive, through the senses. So now I'm just going to read from the last chapter that Prabhupada gave us. When he was in 1977, he was literally, his body, they said, was like a bag of bones. The doctor said, I don't know how he's living in this body. But Prabhupada was still translating from Sanskrit into English. So here's some of those verses. Chapter 13. I'll just read the English because of time. Srila Shukadeva Goswami. It's interesting to note that Sukha. Sukha means parrot. Not exactly like you could say a parrot in the material sense, that simply may be able to repeat some vibrations, but more like one who makes it sweeter, more tasty. Srila Shukadeva Goswami said, Français, ici, translation. We can bring a chair over. I think he needs a chair. Srila Shukadeva Goswami said, O best of devotees, hearing and chanting is most effective when the speaker is pure and the hearer is also pure. At least pure in their hearing, attentive hearing. Just like the example is given of a man, husband and wife. The husband has to be potent, the wife has to be fertile. Then there is good chance of conception. Similarly with spiritual subjects, when the speaker is truly Nivritta Trishna, pure in his consciousness or their consciousness, and the hearer is submissive, the effect can then be transmitted. It can actuate. O best of devotees, he's speaking to, who's he speaking to? Shukadeva Goswami to? Pardon? Very good. Maharaj Parikshit. Some of us are familiar. Most fortunate Parikshit, You have inquired very nicely, for although constantly hearing the pastimes of the Lord, you are perceiving his activities to be newer and newer. This is one of the characteristics of spiritual subject. It is ever fresh. You can read it 100 and 1,000 times. In the early days of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada would be speaking every day on Bhagavad Gita. And some of the young people coming were hippies. And sometimes they would say, "Is the Swami not going to speak on anything else? What about Lobsang Rampa?" I don't suppose you've ever heard of Lobsang Rampa. Maybe some of you have, I don't know. Something about Tibetan Book of the Dead and things like that. Other books. As Srila Prabhupada said, everything is in the Bhagavad Gita. Everything is there. We don't need books which just make our material life a little bit more pleasing. Just imagine we're in a prison house, which we are actually, but we don't know it. But just imagine we are in what we understand is a prison, and all you get is facility to try to be more comfortable in there. But the real good fortune is to be released, not just to make our journey in the prison more comfortable, going to heaven or hell, it's all the same. We want to get out of this material world, come to that spiritual transcendental realm which is ever fresh. It doesn't decay like the material world. And topics concerning that spiritual realm are ever fresh. Because by hearing them, our consciousness becomes purified. And as the consciousness becomes purified, we can see more and more. Sometimes here in New Mayapur, when we have a very clear sky at night, perhaps in Reunion you've also seen, you look at the sky, yes, there's the moon, and a few stars brightly here. And as you look closer and closer, what do you see? If it's a clear sky, no clouds, no dust, what do you see? More and more and more. Unlimited stars are there. At first it just looks like a few. And then as your vision becomes more focused, more and more stars appear to our vision. They're already there. Similarly in spiritual life, when the clarity is there, more and more one can see what is there. Paramahamsas. Paramahamsas means swan-like or pure devotees who have accepted the essence of life, are attached to Krishna in the core of their hearts. And he is the aim of their lives. Hey, Haribo! Radhika! Is that Radhika? Hare Krishna? Haribo! And he is the aim of their lives. It is their nature to talk only of Krishna at every moment, as if such topics were newer and newer. Can you imagine every moment? That's really boring. Just boring, huh? Same thing. Imagine in the material world. I don't know if you're bored of COVID or coronavirus or not, but there's a limit. Everything in the material world has its limits. But spiritual subjects have no limit. O King, kindly hear me with great attention. Although the activities of the Supreme Lord are very confidential. No ordinary man being able to understand them, I shall speak about them to you. For spiritual masters explain to a submissive disciple even subject matters that are very confidential and difficult to understand. So then he now tells the pastime of Lord Brahma, stealing the calves. But he begins, first of all, by reminding Parikshit Maharaj of the previous pastime. Then, after saving the boys and calves from the mouth of a Gasura, who was death personified. Agasura was, Aga means sinful, the sinful demon. As all the boys had walked into his mouth joyfully, knowing, confident, we have nothing to fear, Krishna's here. And anyway, Krishna allowed the pastime to go on. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, after that pastime, brought them all to the bank of the river and spoke the following words. My dear friends, just see how this river bank is extremely beautiful because of its pleasing atmosphere. That's one of the beautiful things in France, materially speaking, isn't it? Many beautiful rivers in France. Beautiful river banks, beautiful trees. This country is graced with many, materially, naturally speaking, at least materially, relatively beautiful scenery, amongst them trees and rivers. Beautiful. And just see how the blooming lotuses are attracting bees and birds by their aroma. The humming and chirping of the bees and birds is echoing throughout the beautiful trees in the forest. Also here, the sands are clean and soft. I don't know if you've all had that experience. Some of you have been to Vrindavan. How many of you have been to Vrindavan on this planet? Charles, I think you were there for a few days. And still there in your heart. Charles, how many years were you there? 25? 30 years he resided in Vrindavan. And now he's bringing Vrindavan to France. Very nice. How many have been to Vrindavan? Some of you. Vrindavan. In India. You've been to Vrindavan. Very nice. Now if you go there, not so much. Still you can find, but 30 years ago, the pathway around Vrindavan town was all sand. Soft. Powder. Like powdery sand. So soft. And now it's all bricks and stones and gravel and tarmac and so on. More almost. You can still find that soft sand. It's there in the spiritual sense, but we can't experience it now. But it's so pleasing. Therefore, this must be considered the best place for sporting and pastimes. And when you've got that soft sand, you can play. It's really fun. I think, Krishna said, we should take our lunch here, since we are already hungry, because the time is very late. Here the cows may drink water and go slowly here and there and eat the grass. Accepting Lord Krishna's proposal, the cowherd boys allowed the calves to drink water from the river and then tied them to trees where there was grass, green, tender grass. Then the boys opened their baskets of food and began eating with Krishna in great transcendental pleasure. Picnic, huh? In English we say picnic. Yeah. In French, same thing, picnic. And most people like picnics, huh? It's fun, huh? What do you think, Sarah Zahansi? Fun? When you take Radhika out for a picnic, it's fun, huh? Go to the river, trees around, birds, grass, sand. Fun. Funny, huh? Because this world is also a reflection of the spiritual world, so you get that reflective happiness also. Like the whirl of a lotus flower, surrounded by its petals and leaves, Krishna sat in the center, encircled by lines of his friends, who all looked very beautiful. Every one of them was trying to look forward toward Krishna, thinking that Krishna might look toward him. In this way, they all enjoyed their lunch in the forest. Actually, every one of them saw Krishna looking at them. Now, I'm looking over this way now. I'm not looking over there. Now I'm looking over there, I'm not looking over there. But Krishna was looking in every direction. And I can't look backwards unless I turn my head around. So Krishna was seeing everyone. They all saw him in the center. And they all saw him. They were looking at him. They all saw Krishna looking at them. And they're really enjoying their lunch. It's a great pleasure, isn't it, when somebody you love looks at you? Isn't it? What do you think? And when somebody you don't love looks at you, you get another experience. You want to close your eyes or run away or something. All the cowherd boys enjoyed their lunch with Krishna, showing one another the different tastes of the different varieties of preparations that they had brought from home. Tasting one another's preparations, they began to laugh and make one another laugh. Yeah, naturally boys, when they play together, they laugh. Young girls also, they laugh. Krishna is yajna bhuk. That is, he eats only offerings of yajna, sacrifice, offered in sacrifice, but to exhibit his childhood pastimes. He now sat with his flute tucked between his waist and his tight cloth on his right side, and with his horn bugle and cow driving stick on his left, holding in his hand a very nice preparation of yogurt and rice, with pieces of suitable fruit between his fingers. He sat like the whirl of a lotus flower, looking forward toward all of his friends, personally joking with them and creating jubilant laughter among them as he ate. Krishna's desire is to please his devotees, and the devotees' desire is to please Krishna. Neither have, you could say, any selfish motivation in this regard. Krishna is just thinking how I can reciprocate to please my devotees in the form of cowherd boys. And the cowherd boys are thinking how we can please Krishna. This is love. At that time, the denizens of heaven were watching, struck with wonder at how the personality of Godhead, who eats only in yajna, was now eating with his friends in the forest. Because normally the demigods, the devas, sages, Brahmins, they're performing sacrifices, reverential sacrifices. Oh God, please accept this offering, Almighty Lord. Oh Lord Narayan. And they're bowing down, offering their respects, making wonderful offerings and puja and so on. And they're thinking, what is this? Our worshipable Lord, who is yajna bhuk, is now sitting here having with some boys playing games together. Is this God? Oh, Maharaj Parikshit, while the coward boys who knew nothing within the core of their hearts but Krishna, they had no motivation not to get, material returns, not even liberation, nothing. They simply loved Krishna. That's all. They didn't even think he was God. They just loved him. So they knew nothing within the core of their hearts but Krishna, were thus engaged in eating their lunch in the forest. The calves, however, wandered far away, deep into the forest, being allured by green grass. When Krishna saw that his friends, the coward boys, were frightened, why they were frightened? Because they saw that the calves and cows were no longer there. Where have they gone? Krishna, the fierce controller, even of fear itself, said, just to mitigate their fear, "My dear friends, do not stop eating. I shall bring your calves back to this spot by personally going after them myself. Let me go and search for the calves," Krishna said. "Don't disturb your enjoyment." Then, carrying his yogurt and rice in his hand, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, immediately went out to search for the calves of his friends. And they had a lot of calves. Right, Charles? You read how many they had? I read the description of the calves. Anyway, we won't get into it. It's inconceivable numbers. To please his friends, he began searching in all the mountains, mountain caves, bushes, and narrow passages. O Maharaj Parikshit, Brahma, who resides in a higher planetary system in the sky, had observed the activities of the most powerful Krishna in killing and delivering a Gasura, and he was astonished. Now that same Brahma wanted to show some of his own power and see the power of Krishna, who was engaged in his childhood pastimes, playing as if with ordinary cowherd boys. Therefore, in Krishna's absence, Brahma took all the boys and calves to another place. Thus, he became entangled. For in the very near future, he would see how powerful Krishna was. Okay, this is orchestrated by the will of the Lord. The Brahma, somehow or another, became overwhelmed with this idea of testing the Lord. But it is described in commentary on this verse that actually he was thinking also, let me do something which will show that Krishna alone is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not only that, he was thinking, let me do something which will cause Krishna to perform even more wonderful pastimes than he's already performed. So in this way, it appears that he became a little bit doubtful about the supreme position of this cowherd boy, who seems to be very powerful. But how is this? Is this really my God? I will test him with my own strength. Like somebody challenges someone else to see how strong they are, how learned they are, how good they are at something. So he's testing the Lord. And in this pastime it's proven that Krishna is God. Thereafter, when Krishna was unable, so he took the calves and the cowherd boys away. He put them in mountain caves. He put them under mystic sleep. They were like asleep. Thereafter, when Krishna was unable to find the calves, he returned to the bank of the river. But there, he was also unable to see the cowherd boys. So he couldn't find the calves. Now he can't find the boys. They're gone. Brahma's taken them away. Or has he? Has he taken them or not? Some are saying no. No. Charles is saying no. He didn't touch them. How can Brahma, in that form, touch the transcendental spiritual forms of the calves and the cowherd boys? He cannot. By Krishna's arrangement, they were replicas of the cowherd boys and calves, known as Mahamayic forms, were created by the external potency of the Lord. And Brahma took those and locked them up in caves. The real forms of the calves and cowherd boys were oblivious. The year passed, boom, like that. 1 year passed, actually. There's no time in spiritual world as such. Measured as time is there, but not measurable. Let's see what happened next. When Krishna was unable to find the calves and their caretakers, the cowherd boys, Krishna was doing this as a pastime to satisfy Brahma, to satisfy all the residents of Vrindavan, to satisfy the cowherd boys and calves. Everyone becomes satisfied by this pastime, and we also. When Krishna was unable to find the calves and their caretakers, the cowherd boys, anywhere in the forest, he could suddenly understand, aha, this is the work of Lord Brahma. Thereafter, just to create pleasure for Brahma and for the mothers of the calves and cowherd boys, Krishna, the creator of the entire cosmic manifestation, what did he do? Start crying? Ah, where they gone? I mean, we would probably start crying, right? We'd be devastated. All of our friends are gone. All of our calves are gone. What am I going to do? I'll go back to Vrindavan and say, oh, I don't know what happened to them all. They just sort of disappeared. Don't worry about it. Don't be so attached. Huh? Can you imagine? How all the cows and how all the mothers of the cowherd boys would feel? Krishna comes back on his own. Where are they all? I don't know. Maybe they all drowned in the river or something. I don't know what happened to them. They all disappeared. No way. Thereafter, so to create pleasure, Krishna expanded himself as calves and boys. By his Vasudev feature, Krishna simultaneously expanded himself into the exact number of missing cowherd boys and calves with their exact bodily features. Now, this is not possible for an ordinary person, for sure. Even if you have a baby, still the baby is not exactly the same, is he or her? They have their own features. Huh? But here, exactly, nobody could tell anything had happened. They were identical. Their particular types of hands, legs, and other limbs, their sticks, their bugles, their flutes, their lunch bags, their particular types of dress, and the ornaments placed in various ways, their names, their ages and forms, and their special activities and characteristics. Not just their external bodies, but their characteristics, their natures, identical. By expanding himself in this way, beautiful Krishna proved the statement, Samagra Jagat Vishnu Mayam. Lord Vishnu is all-pervading. He was literally himself in the Vasudeva form. He was those calves and cowherd boys. Now expanding himself so as to appear as all the calves and cowherd boys, all of them as they were, and at the same time appear as their leader, Krishna entered Brajabhumi, the land of his father, Nanda Maharaj, just as he usually did while enjoying their company. O Maharaj Parikshit, Krishna, who had divided himself as different calves and also as different cowherd boys, entered different cowsheds as the calves and then different homes as different boys. The mothers of the boys, upon hearing the sounds of the flutes and bugles being played by their sons, immediately rose from their household tasks, lifted their boys onto their laps, embraced them with both arms, and began to feed them with their breast milk, which flowed forth because of extreme love, specifically for Krishna. Actually, Krishna is everything, but at the same time, expressing extreme love and affection, they took special pleasure in feeding Krishna, the Parabrahman, and Krishna drank the milk from his respective mothers as if it were nectarian beverage. Because all the cowherd gopis, the mothers in Vrindavan, were always thinking, oh, if only I could have Krishna as my son, then I could, just like Mother Yasoda, I could love him just like Mother Yasoda. And now Krishna is fulfilling their desire. Thereafter, O Maharaj Parikshit, as required according to the scheduled round of his pastime, Krishna returned in the evening, entered the house of each of the cowherd boys, and engaged exactly like the former boys, thus enlivening their mothers with transcendental pleasure. The mothers took care of the boys by massaging them with oil, bathing them, smearing their bodies with sandalwood pulp, decorating them with ornaments, chanting protective mantras, decorating their bodies with tilak, and giving them food. In this way, the mothers served Krishna personally. If we had another hour, we could finish. We don't. Well, we do, but we don't at the same time. That's one of the differences between the material and the spiritual. Everything is controlled by time in the material world. I have no time. I have to go. All the time. I'm tired. I'm hungry. But spiritually, you can also be tired and hungry, but it's transcendental and it doesn't interfere, but rather embellishes the pastimes. But here we have to carry on a little bit longer, but I was going to go into the next canto and what Prabhupada describes as the verse which is the guideline for all devotees in our Krishna consciousness movement. A verse spoken by Lord Brahma himself. But let us carry on here with this pastime. Thereafter all the cows entered their different sheds and began mooing loudly. Oh, moo. Come on, moo. Come on, moo. Why are they mooing? Have you ever lived in a ghost shell? How many of you have lived in ghost shells besides me, Charles? You also lived in ghost shell? Lived inside? Well, more or less. I mean, I stay in the ghost shell in Vrindavan whenever I go, you know that, Charles. Whenever I go there, I stay right underneath Sanat's place. Cows in front, cows on the side, cows behind, all the time going round and all night long. Different sounds coming from the cows. Sometimes they're mooing for their calves or something else. Maybe one of them giving birth. Different things going on. You hear the regular mooing of cows. And quite to the contrary, it's actually very purifying to hear. People may think, what a disturbance. When you hear a dog bark, it's disturbing. Huh? Very disturbing. Cats meowing, very disturbing. Cars, horrible sounds. Even people. But cows mooing, it's like, and some birds also, some beautiful birds, it's like music to the heart practically. Previously, from the very beginning, I think you missed some. Yeah? Oh yeah, calling for their respective calves. So they were mooing for their calves. When the calves arrived, the mothers began licking the calves' bodies again and again, and profusely feeding them with the milk flowing from their milk bags. Previously, from the very beginning, the gopis had motherly affection for Krishna. Indeed, their affection for Krishna exceeded even their affection for their own sons. In displaying their affection, they had thus distinguished between Krishna and their sons. But now, that distinction had disappeared. They were feeling the same affection for their sons as they were for Krishna. Although the inhabitants of Brajabhumi, the coward men and coward women, previously had more affection for Krishna than for their own children, now, for 1 year, their affection for their own sons continuously increased. For Krishna had now become their sons. There was no limit to the increment of their affection for their sons, who were now Krishna. Every day, they found new inspiration for loving their children as much as they loved Krishna. In this way, Lord Sri Krishna, having himself become the coward boys, and groups of calves, maintained himself by himself. Thus, he continued his pastimes, both in Vrindavan and in the forest, for 1 year. One day, 5 or 6 nights before the completion of the year, Krishna, tending the calves, entered the forest along with Balaram. Thereafter, while pasturing atop Govardhan Hill, the cows looked down to find some green grass, and then they saw their calves were pasturing near Vrindavan, not far away. When the cows saw their own calves from the top of Govardhan Hill, they forgot themselves and their caretakers because of increased affection. And although the path was very rough, they ran toward their calves with great anxiety, each running as if with one pair of legs. They're going so fast. Their milk bags full and flowing with milk. Their heads and tails raised, and their humps moving with their necks. They ran forcefully until they reached their calves to feed them. The cows had given birth to new calves. But while coming down from Govardhan Hill, the cows, because of increased affection for the older ones, allowed the older calves to drink milk from their milk bags, and then began licking the calves' bodies in anxiety, as if wanting to swallow them. Because the older ones were the ones that were actually Krishna, expanded 1 year previously into identical forms of calves. And in the meantime, they'd had new calves, but their spontaneity was going to the older ones. The coward men, having been unable to check the cows from going to their calves, felt simultaneously ashamed and angry. They crossed the rough road with great difficulty, but then when they came down and saw their own sons, they were overwhelmed by great affection. At that time, all the thoughts of the coward men merged in the mellow of paternal love, which was aroused by the sight of their sons. Experiencing a great attraction, their anger completely disappearing, they lifted their sons, embraced them in their arms, and enjoyed the highest pleasure by smelling their sons' heads. So Srila Prabhupada, we're halfway through the chapter. Srila Prabhupada, this was the last translation which he did this chapter. We were reading yesterday how Srila Prabhupada was describing that very nicely, how he himself reads these books. Although we say he's the writer, author, translator, commentator, etc. But Prabhupada said, I read these books myself. And each time I read them, I get ever enlightening. I become ever enlightened. And in his own words, he said he learns something new each time, reading his own books. And he said, when I actually, in the morning, Prabhupada said, when I come to write these books, translate, comment, etc., he said, Krishna himself comes and dictates to me what to write. Prabhupada confirmed this on several occasions. He said, this Krishna book is very wonderful. Do you know why it's wonderful? He said. And the devotee said, because you wrote it, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, no, it's wonderful because I didn't write it. Krishna wrote it. Krishna is revealing himself through his pure devotee, who is a transparent media for Krishna to reveal himself to us. So these commentaries, these verses, Prabhupada said they're also my ecstasies. If you want to know me, read my books. He said, I will never die. I live forever through my books. And you can utilize. He wanted us to take advantage of this opportunity to read his books, to hear from his books, to apply the teachings therein in our lives. This is how we worship the instruction of the spiritual master, how we worship Krishna. By hearing attentively from the right source and applying in our lives those teachings. So it's now 2:10, and I think Prasadam is now. So we have to finish. We're only halfway through the chapter, I'm afraid. And very wonderful account of when Lord Brahma came to his senses and the prayers of Lord Brahma. Hare Krishna. So, any comments or questions? I can see a hand, but I can't see a body. Oh, there it is. Hare Krishna.
So,
Anyone?
I have a little question. Like, when we are, well, if we achieve this spiritual platform, and I mean, everybody here, I guess that we want to go back to the spiritual world, right? But we would like to go in a human form, no in a cow form. How is, I mean, how can we choose, or is not in our hands?
Does anyone want to go in a cow form? Anybody want to be a cow in the spiritual world? Anybody want to be a peacock? Any peacocks? Peacock? Oh, blessing him. Oh, blessing. Don't worry. Don't worry. Krishna will fulfill all your desires.
Okay.
But right now, of course, our desires are not necessarily purely transcendental. But our attraction to the pastimes of Krishna are purifying, so that's good. But exactly what is asked, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically is kindly come in His most merciful form through the performance of Sankirtan Yajna, of chanting the holy names of Krishna, and specifically to taste Krishna prema, love of Krishna. As the heart becomes purified and in the association, one will naturally become naturally attracted to devotees with a particular spirit of devotion. One will naturally be attracted. Oh, very good. Excellent. Yeah, we're just finishing. Great. Fantastic. Thank you. Wonderful. So prasadam is ready. Wonderful. So Krishna will reciprocate. It's a natural thing, your natural attraction towards. It evolves as our consciousness becomes purified. In the stage we're at, where we're still, maybe some material attachments are there, it's also nice to become attracted to certain pastimes, be they what they may, because if we hear from the pure devotee, and we follow the path of purification under their guidance, that will help us to become inspired to progress in our spiritual lives. We can't imitate, but we can follow. And when one reaches the stage of nishta, or the steady, pure stage without anarthas, without material motivations, etc., without our own conceptions of how things are, we're purified in the heart, then it becomes more natural that our attraction to pleasing Krishna will develop. It's spontaneous. We don't have to impose anything. It awakens spontaneously. It'll awaken. And one will naturally become attracted to serving Krishna in various ways. So don't worry right now. You'll be completely satisfied. In the spiritual world, it's not that the cow is thinking, I'm not satisfied being a cow. What did I do wrong? How did I end up as a cow up here? I could have gone back to the earth and become a human being. What did I do wrong? They're not thinking like that. They're completely, totally satisfied. But also ever increasingly, you could say, feeling they want to bring more satisfaction to Krishna is ever increasing satisfaction. So don't worry. Right now, that's no problem. Yeah. We become clarified when our hearts become purified. Well, you want to be a wasp in the spiritual wood, mate? I don't know, they have wasps over here. Bees are there, but what about wasps? Do they have wasps up there? He's going crazy now, look at him. Wait, buzz off. Oh, he's angry with me now. Look at him. Oh my goodness, he's going to bite me. Prasadam's ready. Why don't you go to the other room for prasadam, mate? Hanging around here.
He's looking for nectar.
I don't know what he's looking for. Looking for something. Certainly not. I don't think he's afraid. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Are they some kind of perverted reflection of bees? You think? Wasps? There's two of them now, eh? No, it's a fly.
You know, I heard this past time where Prabhupada, with Shema Sundar, he was in a room, and there was a butterfly flying in the room, and Prabhupada just did this, and the butterfly came and just
picked on his finger, yeah.
And he asked Prabhu to open the window, and he did like this. And
the butterfly flew out. Nice. Yeah, lucky butterfly. What a fortunate butterfly, huh? Hare Krishna. Wait. I see something there. Wait, just chase the fly away. Got the whole world going on down there, Don't know what he's thinking about. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Cataract Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Please take advantage of reading Srila Prabhupada's books this week ki jai.
Janananda Goswami Maharaj ki
Wait.